I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 10 years old, about a month after my 10th birthday. At the time, it was really just confusion. I'd never heard of diabetes before, so there was a lot of explanation which I didn't quite understand, and my parents were sort of carrying the weight of helping me along with that and my understanding of it. It was also in a lot of ways quite an isolating time. I think just the knowledge at that age that you've got something about you that's different, and that especially when you don't understand it yourself, you sort of catastrophize things. You see it as something that is worse than it is. I went back to school after being diagnosed, and everyone was incredibly supportive. No one looked at me differently, but in my head everyone did. I thought that I was now some sort of black sheep who was just sticking out like a sore thumb wherever I went. So yeah, it was a difficult time after that initial diagnosis. Where I am now, 17 years later, it's not had that sort of social or that impact that I was thinking it might. Obviously, it's had impact on my life, there's no denying it, but the things that I was worrying about at the time are not things that I needed to worry about, and if I'd known that at the time, I think it would have been a lot easier, and it would have made the acceptance of it initially, and then being able to better handle it and deal with my blood sugar, it would have made that a lot more straightforward. Part of that initial phase of not really understanding it and wanting to, I suppose, not really acknowledge it, that carried on with me into my teenage years, where if there were ever times where diabetes wasn't going as well as I'd hoped, instead of sort of rising up to it and saying, okay, I need to fix something, I think a lot of people had the tendency to sort of shrink away from it somewhat and move into that mindset of, if I just try not to think about it too much, it can't hurt me. And I think that was something that's carried on into recent years. It's very difficult, I think, once you're in that sort of state of mind to push on and decide that you're going to actively make the changes that you probably know you've needed to for quite a while. It's especially the teenage years, I think, when you for various reasons you clash with your parents, you're a mess of hormones at the time. It can be so much easier to just not want to have that diabetes thought in your mind at the same time. So yeah, it was much easier to just act like it wasn't a thing.
So what's changed in recent years that's made you able to manage your diabetes?
So I mean, on a personal level, I think there's the change that comes with maturity, but I think I've always had good people around me who've helped me with it, and I think they sort of steered me towards wanting to take charge of this, rather than just letting it happen, going out and doing something about it. And I think what was ultimately a huge benefit for me was the availability of the new technology. So the Libra sensor for me was a huge deal. But I think beyond that, I recently did the Dafne course, which paired with the technology is, I think, crucial. I think that it's not a stretch to say that has changed my life. And you can have the sensor, and I did for a year or so, where I thought, this is great, I've got all this technology, but I wasn't really using the data that I was getting from it. So you've got access to so much more knowledge about how things are going for you, but it doesn't really mean anything if you don't know what to do with that knowledge. You need to understand, the trends that you're seeing. You need to understand what to do in certain situations, and that's what the Dafne course really enabled me to do. It just gave me really all the tools that I needed to actually make sense of what's going on. And it initially seemed like a frightening concept. They go into carb counting. You think, am I going to be every single meal weighing things out on a set of scales, and it's going to be a nightmare, this is life now. But you do that initially, of course, and then you start to know what certain things will do. You really pick up so much knowledge so quickly, and that's where I've really seen the benefit. It's taken a lot of situations that I used to struggle in and made them, trivial, like they're not even an issue anymore. So I'm someone who likes to go to the gym. I'll go, a couple of mornings a week, and that exercise used to really throw me out for the rest of the day. And I had no clue why, even doing a bit of research on my own. And the Dafne course deals with that. And there's so many situations that can be really challenging for anyone with diabetes, like exercise, like sick days, and they just give you every bit of knowledge that you need to manage it as well as you can. I think what I struggled with for a long time was the idea of perfection when it comes to diabetes. So I would often think that if I wasn't, 5.5 at all times, then it was everything had gone wrong. And obviously that's what we strive for, but the Dafne course in particular really just helped me to level myself and realise that I don't need to always be overreacting to things. So, if there's certain times where something's happened, I know I've got the knowledge to get back to where I should be. And that's what's been so helpful. I think 5 years ago, I would have been in one of those situations and it would have been incredibly disheartening, to suddenly see my blood sugar jump up and not really know the reason why. And that can still happen sometimes. But now, even if I don't know the reason why that's happened, I know what I need to do to get back to where I should be. And that's what's really making the difference. I think it's something that I would say probably doesn't get spoken about enough, is the sort of mental and emotional impact that it can have, especially, for anyone, but especially if you're diagnosed in your teens or at a younger age. It really throws your whole world out. And it was something that I definitely struggled with, but the new technology, the Dafne course, have really helped to get me back in a mindset where I do feel like the future's going to be optimistic, like it's going to be fine. And that's all I was really looking for.